I'm Manchester Museum's Social Justice Manager, and I've been supporting Greater Manchester Law Centre to host their exhibition on our top floor space. Part of our aspiration on the top floor in our Social Justice and Climate Action Hub is to, one, understand the needs of our city better, but also to host things like this, where community organisations, charities, grassroots organisations and organising can come and utilise our space.
I was contacted by a member of the Law Centre because I volunteer with Greater Manchester Tenants Union and I work in theatre and curation as an artist. So I've just been one of the 4 exhibition coordinators. A lot of the changes that have happened in the past 10 years since the legal aid cuts have come in place have been so complex, and the myriad of options for where people can get help has slowly been shrinking and shrinking. So I think one of the things we wanted to do is to, rather than just have a lecture or a speech and just a talk commemorating the 10 years, was to bring artists together and have kind of a creative kind of journey so that people could look at what is often a very dark and quite troubling subject for a lot of people, but in a much more light and free way.
One of my pieces of artwork is featured in the exhibition for GMLC. I love being an artist because I think that it's such a great way to be able to show people's stories in a way that anyone can understand.
I was involved with the Law Centre about 15 years ago in Wythenshawe, which I both actually attended as a client and then I volunteered at for a few years just after that because I was so impressed with what the Law Centre did.
So I worked for about just under 20 years with refugee and asylum seeker students. So I taught ESOL, English to speakers of other languages, and also was sort of really aware of some of the issues to do with the lack of legal aid, particularly around increasing homelessness and people who can't get legal aid, so rising numbers of families, for example, being made homeless by landlords with policies of austerity, etc.
I've been involved in putting together some artwork and also just kind of organising a bit. I've got 2 pieces, yes. There's one of Gold Justice Head called Justice Defiled. There's the little cartoony one, which is Where's the Justice?
I'm a GP in Manchester, and we have used Greater Manchester Law Centre in the past. We've encouraged patients to go and get their free legal advice.
Well, I've heard about it through the website, and actually the main driving force was watching that Mr Bates vs Post Office. I know in my sort of friendship circles, certain injustices or other issues don't really come about until people see these problems.
I work at the museum and I was quite interested in looking at what the exhibition was on about. So it's been lunchtime, so I can come up and have a look because you finish when I finish.
To be honest with you, I wasn't actually expecting it to be here, but it's really convenient that it is because I'm really interested in medical law, but my partner also works in legal work, so we're both kind of interested in different aspects of it.
I'm a legal aid paralegal and I also volunteer with the Law Centre. So I'm just here to help out with the exhibition and hopefully inform some people about legal aid issues that we see every day.
I work for Greater Manchester Tenants Union. We work closely with Greater Manchester Law Centre. We deal primarily with housing issues, tenants, lodgers. The stories in the exhibition show how many people are actually being failed by the system. And some of these things, they could happen to anyone. Anyone could find themselves frustrated in a bit of a wasteland when it comes to defending themselves.
It's great to see it in its final form, I think. The reason really that compelled me to want to have some kind of an exhibition rather than just write an article, I thought it's a lot more, hopefully more engaging. Facts and figures alone can be useful, but kind of make people's eyes glaze over, whereas to really sort of bring home the fact that this could happen to anyone. Anyone can have a legal issue, whether that be housing, private law, family, so it kind of affects a wide spectrum of society.
I didn't know much about legal aid actually before this exhibition, so it's been really great for me to learn more about how legal aid helps people, but also how the massive cuts to legal aid is really impacting people.
But the thing that what struck me at the exhibition was how much less help there is now compared to what there was even back then, which was a period of cuts.
Just that map
the map that's part of the exhibition, where you can see those shaded areas where there are no legal aid solicitors at all. It's quite shocking. It's the majority of the country.
The thing that resonated with me most was Piotr's story. Obviously, struggling with homelessness, because I can see that I would be at the sort of other end of it. I would see Piotr as he came in, if he had become street homeless. But the thing that struck me was that the two paths. So, you've got your red path of what's happened and the green path of what could have happened if legal aid was there.
Showcases the areas where legal aid has left the normal people without a lot of support to fight their corner when they do have a fairly justifiable case that they've been kind of wronged, and there's very few law centres left. There's very few legal professionals that will work pro bono on kind of small cases like that, and actually it highlights there's a huge need but a real lack of access.
I think that if you asked the average person how much they knew about this, it would be less than you would like. It's definitely something that we need to share more information about. I don't necessarily think that it's because people don't care. I think it's more that they just don't know that this is going on.
It's only 1 in 4 people qualify for civil legal aid now. And even when they do, it's so hard to find a provider for issues that are really, really devastating for people. I think the biggest thing really is just raising consciousness of the issue.
In my own role, as a software developer, I've got certain understanding of the industry I'm in legally. But I'll be honest, like some of the stuff I was reading there about the criminal and civil courts and the sort of the nuances. No, I don't understand the nuances. So it's interesting to read about.
I remember the law centres, and then I remember the decline as the law centres started closing. There was no way for people to go. It's very similarly, my background is in youth work. When they closed the youth club, there was no way for young people to go. So we're seeing what's happening now with young people. So it's the same with the law. If you don't know where to go, if you don't have access, you don't have means, injustices can happen, and nobody knows. You're a silent minority, visually not seen.
It's not all doom and gloom. Fortunately, there are people in the system working to help provide advice and support, including obviously Greater Manchester Law Centre, and there's the Immigration Aid Unit and various other organisations. But to some extent, that's sort of plugging the gap.
I think that art is one of the strongest bits of the exhibition, actually. I mean, the statistics really hit you, but the art makes you feel in a different kind of way.
It's different what you respond to. I mean, the photographs always drawn me, but I like the game with the balls as well. Where they didn't all roll properly and you couldn't get the game to work. I thought that was clever as well.
It's really accessible. I think particularly even with seeing it alongside the art, I think it conveys a message that's understood by all.
The law will get you so far, but then, you need collective action or some kind of activism to move things along a little bit.
It's actually very few people who could afford that sort of legal cost. So it's sort of perpetuating the privilege, being able to get through the legal system without a hitch, and the majority of people really, not just the poor. I think that's the thing, not just people who are officially classed as below the poverty line. It's the majority of people would really struggle to get representation.
It's just really shocking that people can have such blatantly unfair, illegal things done to them and not have any recourse to be able to get justice.
What we really need is more wholesale change and rolling out of legal aid so people can properly access justice and set their rights. And I hope that's something that people that come to the exhibition take away with them. People feel compelled to, actively be more committed to accessing justice and making sure that people throughout society can do so too.
It makes me angry, but sometimes I think, what can I do? Any little thing I do is worth doing. So if I let somebody know there is an opportunity, there is CAB, there is places where you can go to, and they'll tell other people. So the knock-on effect means there's so much we can do if only we take that first action.
We need a law centre in every town. You know, I know how much work they do, and with legal aid having been cut, you know, again and again, there's a desperate need for places like the Law Centre to protect and advise people and guide them through this minefield of a legal system that we have.
This is a really tragic thing that happened and something we need to campaign against.
A lot of the time I feel as if I'm working with my hands tied behind my back and not able to deliver the things that people absolutely need. So the artwork resonates with me personally.
Just knowing where to go, or even knowing you have your rights. You don't even know it is a basic right for you to have something. And I think our system now is so geared to people who have access, the means and the knowledge to get further. It's the divide from not knowing and knowing is so vast.
I think you just don't really appreciate it until you either see it documented or you have someone going through it themselves.
And you then realise that there's not very much you can do.
People sort of assume you have this safety net there, whereas really there is nothing left, next to nothing left for people who are in really, really desperate situations. I think when you talk about homeless people or you talk about asylum seekers, because of the news coverage that you get, you sort of otherise them automatically. So I think actually looking at case studies of people who have had to come to the law centre helps just really put into perspective how it can happen to anyone and they're real people.